Good morning. Thanks to Jay and Vicki for interpreting this morning. As you can see, I was rather conflicted about my mask choice this morning, so I have two masks. I have this one, and I'm dressed in red, because the Reds are in the playoffs today, and the game is at noon in Atlanta, and in a time when we've got so much that's challenging us going on, I think it's important to celebrate the victories for Cincinnati, and so go Reds. So we're very excited about that, but today is the day we're talking about voting, and so I wanted to make sure that everybody knows how to vote, knows when to vote. That's really what the program is about today, outside of what Greg always covers importantly, which is the numbers. Greg, I don't mean to dismiss the reason really that we're here, but COVID-19 has created a situation where we have to do different things in this county to make sure everybody has the opportunity to vote safely. And so we're going to go through that today, but before we do that, we're going to talk about the numbers. So in Hamilton County, as of today, we have positive cases that number 13,340. The change from last week is 490. We have had 1,136 people hospitalized. The increase from last week is 16. And the death count is at 321. The increase from last week is 12. Greg, as always, will run through those numbers and the trends and the details to make sure we understand what all of that means. Also, early voting starts next week. Gwen McFarland, the Democratic Party chair and the chair of the Board of Elections, and Alex Triantafilou, the GOP chair and Board at County Elections member, are with us today to talk about how we are going to conduct safe and fair elections in Hamilton County, how to request an absentee ballot, how to vote early, which will accommodate social distancing, and protocols for election day. The message today for the voters out there, which I hope is all of you, is make a plan. Make sure your vote gets counted. There are multiple ways to vote safely in this election. You can request an absentee ballot and mail it in. You can request an absentee ballot and drop it off at the Board of Elections in the drop box in Norwood. You can vote early in person at the Board of Elections, or you can vote on Election Day, which is November 3rd. However you choose to vote, please make a plan. And before we go to Greg and Alex and Gwen, I want to read something off that was sent to us from the Hamilton County Office of Reentry. So this talks about a certain population in the county, and I want to make sure that this message is heard by those individuals. So Hamilton County's Office of Reentry is teaming up to spread awareness that returning citizens have the right to vote after they have served a felony sentence. Part of the mission is to spread the word to returning citizens that they can register to vote once they have served their sentence. In Ohio, people convicted of a felony will have their voter registration canceled while they're incarcerated, but can re-register once they're released. People convicted of misdemeanors are eligible to vote even if they are incarcerated. Everyone must be registered to vote 30 days before the November election, which is October 5th. So thank you to the Office of Reentry for sending us that information. All right, so before we go to the rundown about elections and voting in Hamilton County, we're going to turn it over to Greg Kesterman, Hamilton County Health Commissioner, for some more information about the data that we talked about earlier.
Thank you, Commissioner Dreihaus, and good morning. So we continue to see cases in Hamilton County, and they continue to stay fairly stable, which is excellent news. I'm proud of our community that we made it through Labor Day without seeing any significant increases in our numbers. Also worth noting, the majority of our schools at this point are back open in some capacity. We have in-person learning at most schools in Hamilton County, and they are not contributing at all to any kind of increases. So I'm really proud of our schools, our superintendents, and our parents for making schoolwork this year. And don't forget the teachers that have to sit in the classroom each day and work with their students to help bring mask compliance in that classroom. So I'm happy with everyone's hard work in those regards. So let's start with talking about testing here in Hamilton County. There are a lot of great opportunities to get tested. On the slide, there are several locations that you can go and get free or no-cost testing throughout the community. You can find all of these sites on our website at hcph.org. And if you visit our website, there's a link to the Test and Protect website, which has the opportunity to request testing and to make sure that you're able to bring testing to your community. I think it's important to remember that when you get tested, if you are symptomatic or have a known exposure with someone with COVID ID, you should quarantine at home until you get those test results. We don't want you out spreading COVID while you're waiting for those test results. Let's talk about Hamilton County's data. Once again, I just mentioned that we're seeing things stable. We've not gotten back to the lockdown levels of COVID cases. We are a little bit elevated, but things remain fairly calm with the number of cases. Some days we have some spikes, but generally speaking, when you look at the 7-day average, things remain fairly flat. Looking into the demographic data, we do see still a slight increase in the 18 to 24-year-olds, but generally speaking, those rates are now back around 7%, which is close to where they had been throughout this pandemic. At one point, you may recall that these were around 18%. So I really want to thank everyone in that demographic, those 18 to 24-year-olds, for your efforts and for everything you've done to start being more careful. I'm sure it's not perfect out there, but for each of you that have taken your fellow friends and taken steps to make sure that things are calming down and staying safe, I really appreciate it. All the other age demographics, including school-age children, remain very stable with regards to their positivity rates. Reviewing the reproductive number today, we are at 0.99. This number does track fairly closely with cases, so we have been seeing, as I mentioned, some ups and downs, but generally fairly stable. So that reproductive number has been hanging out right around 1, which is good news. When you look at our region, we are at 1.03. which is also fairly good. We won't see any surrounding counties contributing significantly to Hamilton County. And then lastly, with regards to the data, I like to share the hospitalization numbers for Hamilton County. Those remain flat and fairly low. In addition, deaths for Hamilton County remain fairly low as well. And then lastly, when you think about our region, both of those measures are low as well and on the decline, as well as intensive care unit admissions. It's on the decline as well. So all very positive signs, especially considering that we have so many activities back open in our county. I want to briefly mention now, because we are talking about voting and elections, that our office at the invitation of the Board of Elections did go out and do a consult and an inspection of their main office and did a review to make sure that things were safe. We looked at plans and practices, talked with them about sanitizer and what would be required from a pandemic perspective to make sure that the elections are operated safely. I'm very impressed with everything they did in their proactive steps. Actually, we had very few recommendations because they were so proactive, so that was very excellent. I ask everyone that participates, and I really hope everyone does participate in the election, to be respectful, leave space between others in lines, and then please wear that mask. That shows everyone that you care, and it does help slow the spread of germs, including COVID-19. We are at a place where, as if we keep working as a team, we will continue to see improvements within Hamilton County, and we'll be able to continue doing all the things that we love this fall. So I ask everyone to continue to work together so that we can make it to winter and still be where we're at today. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. All right, so now we're going to hear from Gwen and Alex. So because of the social distancing, they can't be up here together. And so Gwen, who is the chair of the Board of Elections, is going to come up first and talk about how we're going to conduct fair and safe elections here in Hamilton County. So thanks for being here, Gwen. Just delighted to have both of them here.
Good morning, everyone. I would first like to thank Commissioner Dreihaus for inviting us here this morning to again update our voters and to better prepare them for the next 34 days. We have 34 days before November the 3rd, Election Day. And I'd like to thank Greg for the work that you did, Greg, as well as coming into our facility, providing information and educating the staff on what we could do to continue to improve and ensure the voters that our locations will be safe and secure. So as of today, this morning, we have had 54,000 requests to receive their ballots. This is the mail application ballot form that everyone completes, and it really is critical that you fill out this early. We really are encouraging you strongly to complete this form ahead of time. Complete it, mail it, or drop it in our drop box at the Board of Election. I personally would suggest that you drop it in our drop box. It's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and that way you can be assured that your ballot will get to the Board of Election in a timely manner. This includes at the far end of this month as well. So we're strongly encouraging everyone to fill out the form. When you receive your ballot, do not let it lay on your dining room table. We're strongly asking you to look at your ballot, complete it very carefully. There are very clear directions on how the ballot must be completed. Once you've completed it, signed it, and there's some of the areas that we're seeing that need to be cured from a ballot may include, cured means that you have not completely filled out, includes many times your birth date. It also may include the fact that you did not sign the form, which is very critical. You must complete the process. It's very legible. If you have any questions about how to complete that form, we're encouraging you to go to our website, where there is a video that will just give you step-by-step directions on how to complete that form. So the question has also been raised, how many stamps do I need to put on the ballot? 2 stamps, okay? That is, to be safe, put 2 stamps. You must also remember to complete your ballot on both sides, not just on one side. You have 2 to complete. So, this is going to be our first year for a presidential election in our new location in Norwood at 4700 Smith Road. And we've actually been preparing for November the 3rd way before today, way before the primaries. It's been an ongoing process as we prepare to provide a facility and ensure our voters that they're casting their ballots in a manner that will be counted, and also casting their ballots when they come in to walk into the facility as well. One of the really outstanding and great things we've had recently is that we have been able to secure a new location, and that location is still within the campus of the Board of Election. It's still at 4700 Smith Road, but you would come in through the main entrance as you are accustomed to doing. Then what you'll do, we'll have signs posting where to go. There will be clear signs. The really thing that's important is that wear a mask at all times. We will be enhancing and expecting and requiring that you wear a mask at all times. So the area that you're going to go to now will give you more space. You'll have more of an opportunity to meet and greet the staff who are assisting you. When we had, for example, in our primary election, let me just compare and contrast the difference between our primary election and our November the 3rd election. In our primary election, we had 52 booths and 10 checking in areas. Now we have 120 booths and tables with 30 check-in stations. So when you walk into the building, you will be greeted and met by a staff person who will assist you to where you're going to vote, and as well as we have a special area for individuals with special needs. So that is, I think, very important, because one of the things we have continued to do is to provide a safe and secure facility for all of our voters. One thing that's I see with early voting is that you will not have to wait as long in lines as we have in the past. We're also trying to make sure that when you drop your ballot in the drop box, if it's a day or 2 before Election Day, be prepared for some backup in traffic. We had that problem before. We have done everything as the board to minimize that. So it's important that also we just received a grant for $1.4 million, and that grant was very important. It saved you all in the county money with the grant, and the staff are to be commended for the work that they put into getting that grant, completing it in a timely manner so that we could continue to provide a safe and secure facility for everyone. So we're preparing for November the 3rd. The hours, I think Alex is going to go over the hours, so I won't go over that with you. But again, we are expecting, it looks like maybe about 480,000 folks voting here in Hamilton County this year. So we're prepared for it. The goal is to continue to provide a safe and secure area, not only on Smith Road, where the Board of Election is, but in each one's polling area in their neighborhoods. So again, there'll be masks. We will provide safe equipment, hand sanitizer. We will also provide masks if a person does not have a mask. And we will also have the areas where you're voting will be cubicles, but there will only be two individuals in each cubicle, although each cubicle can allow 4 people to vote. So again, that's going to be safe distancing there as well. So I'm not going to steal all of the thunder. Alex is going to come up and share some information as well. But Alex and I are working together. We work very well together as we work and ensure that our polling areas are safe and secure, and that all of the staff are safe and secure as well as our voters. So I'm going to turn it over to Alex right now, and you can kind of wrap it up for me.
Well, thank you, Chair McFarland, and thank you, Commissioner Dreihaus, for the invitation to return. I think I'm going to pick up where Chairman McFarland left off, and that is I would want the citizens of Hamilton County to know that in a time where we seem so divided, we're never more united on this topic, and that is making sure that this election is conducted fairly, safely, and that the integrity of the ballot and the integrity of the vote is maintained. So we are 34 days away from this contentious election, but I can tell you that I'm pleased, as I have been for years on our Board of Elections, about our ability to set aside those differences and make sure that we're protecting your right to vote. So I'm pleased to say that you have almost a month to cast your ballot here in Ohio. That window opens on October the 6th. I think citizens should also know that they can still register to vote until October the 5th. They can register to vote not just at the Board of Elections, but at the Bureau of Motor Vehicles, at the public library, and even online. So you have until October the 5th to register. On October the 6th at 8 a.m., we expect a crowd, but we'll have open voting at the Board of Elections. We also will begin mailing early ballots to voters across Hamilton County. The early voting hours are posted on our website at votehamiltoncountyohio.gov. I believe there's a graphic that will be presented for all of you to review here to see the early voting hours at the Board of Elections. And then, of course, there will be the 13-hour window, as there traditionally always is on Election Day, for voters to cast their ballot in person. So again, we're working hard at the Board of Elections to assure a safe election, and look forward to answering any questions you might have. Thank you again.
So thanks again to Gwen McFarland, Alex Trantafilo, both with the Board of Elections, for coming in. As you can see, it's a bipartisan effort, as it always is in Hamilton County, to make sure that people can vote safely, that it'll be a fairly conducted election, and that we have a lot of options for people to exercise their right to vote. So thanks again for coming in. We'll put that graphic with the dates on it up at the very end so that people can take a look at that again. I know there are a lot of dates, but we want to make sure everybody's got accurate information. So with that, Alex, I believe Alex is doing it, or ready for questions.
Thank you, Commissioner. The first question is from Scott Wortman from the Cincinnati Enquirer, and it is for our Board of Elections members.
Okay.
So,
We'll tag team, I think. Scott, go ahead and ask your question.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I had a couple questions for Alex and Gwen. First question, with the president calling into question the validity or making allegations of voter fraud with mail-in ballots, are you concerned that that's undermining people's confidence in the system? That's for both party chairs.
So much of that is political, Scott. What I know, as well as anyone, 13 years now on our Board of Elections, is that the system here is safe and secure. Your vote by mail is safe and secure, and so much of that talk is political. I'm certainly happy to defend the president. I'm not here to do that today. I'm here just to talk to you about the safety and security of the election. And I'll also say that if you look at the record number of requests for early votes, it would seem that any messaging that might be interpreted the way that you suggested is not being heard, because people are requesting the ballot in record numbers.
I would like to reiterate what Alex has stated as well. We have a great staff that work there. We have Dems and Rs, Ds and Rs. They work well together. We also have taken in the past, continue in the past couple of years, to take tests and to be able webinars so that we can practice safety, as well as set the system up in such a way that we're not going to have any problems with the voting process. And the other thing too, some people have said, well, something can happen at the polls. If you're in your neighborhood polling areas as well, we do not have internet there. So therefore, nobody can come in and do cybersecurity and hack those folks who are voting in those outlying areas. So we are very comfortable. I'm very comfortable. Alex and I have discussed this frequently, that our staff is working together harmoniously together so that we can ensure a safe and secure voting here in Hamilton County.
I also had a question for both chairs on the aftermath of the election. Obviously, it took for a lot of close races in the primary about a week to 10 days to get final results. This is going to be much bigger. How are you preparing for that, and how much of a delay do you think there'll be after getting the results and all the ballots in?
We do not believe that there will be any lengthy period before any ballot count, the final counts will be completed. If you recall, with the primary, we were not expecting at the last moment to have to make some changes at the last minute. So with this election, we are continuing. We scan the ballots after 7:30. We get all of the information in, and I truly believe that we will not be there until 4 o'clock in the morning as we were in the primary. So as I said, we have been preparing since we moved into that location to look at how we could minimize, number one, any particular problems voters may encounter, as well as to minimize any time frames where we will be way behind in getting those results out.
Is there any way to know how many ballots you'll be waiting on to get back that are still in the mail? And
that's difficult to determine at this particular time, but everyone, and we educate folks that we know that we have 10 days, after the election for those ballots that may be hanging out there like on a cliff, to come in. The concern continues to be it's in the hands of the Postal Service, and that's why I continue, and we both continue to encourage individuals when they complete their ballot to drop their ballot in the mailbox, the drop box here at 4700 Smith Road at the Board of Elections. Alex, you wanted to say something?
Scott, your question was about that period after the election. Just to be clear, there's always a period after the election, regardless of COVID or these other changes that we're seeing. For absentee ballots that are mailed in, obviously, military and overseas ballots. And we've seen, again, long before some of the tumult that we've seen in 2020, we've seen elections be so close as to be changed between election night results and the final count. I can think of Rebecca Groppe in the Wayne Coates race several years ago, where we had one result on election night, a different result 10 days later. So that's not unusual with those outstanding ballots. Now, that being said, with so many early ballots being cast by mail, there's a chance, and again, it's dangerous to predict anything in this crazy year, but there's a chance we could get results much sooner, because if all these mail-in ballots are counted on time and early and we're allowed to release the results, there will be a significant amount of ballots counted and those results released right at 7:30, 8 o'clock. So it depends. Much is left to sort of work through about how that's going to come down. But I know we had some results pretty early in the primary. We just weren't able to release them because of a directive from the Secretary of State. But there's a good chance people will see results even earlier. Again, we'll see what happens here over the next 34 days. I hope that makes sense.
Thank you.
Our next question is from David Winter with WKRC, and it's also for the Board of Elections members.
Okay, let's go ahead and have the question. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Denise. Yeah, my question is, please, for both Alex and Gwen. And the first question, got a couple. The first question is, last night during the debates, President Trump asked his supporters to go down to the polling places and make sure everything goes legally and okay. I'm not sure exactly what that meant, except for he asked his supporters to go down to the polling places. Can both Gwen and Alex address that, perhaps clarify what electioneering is, and whether they would suggest people come down to the polling places to make sure that everything is going okay?
Ohio law provides an opportunity for candidates to appoint observers in the polling locations. Both parties and presidential nominees from both parties have done that for years. Perhaps that's what the president was talking about. I know there's an active observer program on the Republican side. I'm probably guessing the Democrats also have an active observer program. We've seen that time and again in presidential cycles. In terms of what the law here in Ohio says, you obviously shouldn't be in a polling location unless you're there to vote. You can't electioneer inside of 100 feet from the, electioneering, by the way, is a fancy word for campaigning. You can't campaign inside of that 100-foot mark from the entrance of the polling location. So again, if someone wants to participate as a poll worker, something we can, again, do on a bipartisan basis, we encourage people to engage as poll workers who can follow the rules and do it with integrity and act in good faith, exist in every political stripe, and we encourage them to participate that way. So if you heard the president's call and you want to come and participate, you can be a poll worker, you can be a poll observer. And if you want to campaign, just stay 100 feet away from the entrance of the polling location.
Every chance, every opportunity that Alex and I have to educate the public, every opportunity when we have our board meetings every month or in between, we remind all of our voters that your voting is safe and secure. It's going to be a challenge when you hear a lot of misinformation that's given out, and that's why Alex and I work together to be on forums like this so that we can educate the voter about what the facts are and not get hopefully swayed by what the rumors are that you're hearing. So I've always been told when there are rumors, the best way to eliminate the rumors is to tell on them. And that's what Alex has just done, and that's what I've just done to reassure our voters. We have a safe voting process. We do have voter protection individuals that are going to be at every polling area as well as at our board, just to ensure that everything is safe, above board, and there's nothing to be worried about. If I didn't believe that, I wouldn't be saying what I'm saying, all right? And we work together very well in a bipartisan manner to show and demonstrate that we believe in a fair election, and we will have a fair election here in Hamilton County.
Can you tell me how are you able to hear me still? Okay, great. Can you tell me how the observer system works? In other words, can any number of people come down and be observers? Can they determine that on the day of the election? Hey, I'm just coming down here to be an observer. Can you tell me how that works? And I'll just go ahead and finish out this line of questioning, so maybe you can address all this stuff. But what exactly is campaigning on site? Can people wear T-shirts that support their candidates? Can they hold signs as they are waiting in line to vote? What would the difference be? And then if you could, lastly, so the observers, what is electioneering, as it were? And then what is some suggestions on how people can avoid being quote unquote intimidated while they're waiting to vote?
Wow. I'm going to address some of those questions, and then I'm going to have Alex address those as well. Those are issues that we have discussed in our meetings. We have, at the present, we will have sheriffs there to make sure that the voters are safe. We will also have Norwood police officers there at the poll, not only on Smith Road, but if necessary, in our various polling areas out in the community. The voter protection folks are trained. They are lawyers. All of them must be attorneys to be able to filter through and determine if a person makes a complaint or raises a concern that something appears to be illegal. Okay, so, and there's also 24-hour calls that are occurring just to prepare us for any unusual incidents. From our perspective, Alex and I, it's very clear this has come up before, and I'm going to reassure as well as he that our voters, our volunteers who are out campaigning are going to be safe. We will not tolerate, and if you can give that law that we as the board members have, we will not tolerate any harassment or any threats to anyone coming into our facility to vote. And that's something we really frown on and will not accept at all. Now, the other questions, Alex, I'm going to let you filter through those.
Sure. Your question was, and I may have to ask you to repeat a couple of them if I missed some. You asked about poll observers. Now, I can't tell you chapter and verse, the deadlines, and some of the basic requirements. Just didn't come prepared with that information at the tip of my tongue. However, generally speaking, the poll observer system works this way. You must register as a poll observer in advance. You have to fill out a state-required form. You have to submit it to the Board of Elections, and you have to be approved as a poll observer. There's a deadline for that. I'm not sure what it is off the top of my head. There's also a form available on the Secretary of State's website that one can fill out. And the requirements of the observer, I believe you have to be a qualified elector, and I believe you have to be from Ohio, but I would check those facts on me before you run with it. You cannot, to answer your question, you cannot just show up and observe. If you want to observe, you can do it 100 feet away from the entrance to the polling location. In terms of campaigning, no garb or paraphernalia in support of any candidate is allowed inside the polling location or within 100 feet to the entrance of the polling location. So, you know, as sacrosanct as your right to vote is, you also have a First Amendment right to campaign. And again, both sides will campaign vigorously at various polling locations, all in an effort to convince voters. So as long as people are doing that within the bounds of the rules, doing it respectfully and responsibly, you shouldn't see any issues. You know, we've had contentious presidential elections before. Nothing unusual about that. I expect those have all gone smoothly with a wrinkle here or there. I expect the same will occur this time. It's been my experience, candidly, that oftentimes outside the polling locations where people are campaigning, you'll see Republicans and Democrats ultimately form a friendship over that 13-hour period as they both stand in the rain and the cold advocating for their respective candidate. That's the American way, and that's healthy. What's not healthy is violating any of the rules and procedures that exist to ensure integrity and fairness in the process. So there won't be any electioneering inside the polling locations. We ask people to cover up their T-shirts, put away their buttons, put aside, you know, they can bring in their literature, but you know, they can't wave it around and try to convince other people inside that polling location. I hope I've answered your questions.
You have. Thank you very much.
Okay, our next question is from Jay Hanselman from WVXU, and Jay doesn't have a mic today, so I'm going to have to read his question to you. Again, it's for Gwen and Alex.
Greg is feeling very lonely today, by the way. It's okay.
Jay asks, Gwen mentioned like 110 voting stations, I think it was 120, for early in-person voting. Will those be sanitized after each voter? Same thing for the polling place. Will voting stations be cleaned after each voter?
Yes, to all of the above. and as I indicated earlier, we had staff, we've trained staff, we will clean every polling area where a person actually physically stands after each person. We have hand sanitizers, masks as well, and even gloves if a person requires that or wants that. And then we also, if the person has a pen, they can use the pen, but then we put the pen, dispose of the pen, or ask them to take the pen with them. But we are always looking at, we keep all of the areas sanitized, not only at the BOE, Board of Election, but as well as out in the individual polling areas on November the 3rd. And Alex, it just reminded me too, when I talked about the grant that we got for $1.4 million, that was to provide extra PPE supplies, extra sanitizing, all of the things that we need to have to make our voters feel safe, be safe, and to make sure that the voting continues to be safe and secure for the health of all of our individuals, not just the voters, but the staff as well. Does that answer your question? Should. I think we caught it. Did we catch everything?
Okay. Our next question is from Sheena Eltsey from Spectrum News, and it is for Gwen and Alex.
Good morning. Yeah, I know you all briefly touched on this, but I wanted to check and see if you all could go over in detail basically the safeguards that you have in place to assure that people's votes are going to be counted.
Have been in place for a long time, and let me begin by just saying we take great pride in counting as many provisional ballots as possible. We work again together most of the time to make sure we're counting all the provisional ballots. So Sheena, it's a pretty wide open question. I suppose I would tell you that I hope you're seeing it today. I mean, we're very united to be sure that every vote is properly counted. And that we have great access. You have 28 days to cast your ballot in this state. You have 270 hours or something to do it in person. You have the opportunity to vote by mail. I jokingly say that every blue post office box is a drop box if you choose to make it a drop box. So, people should just understand that we take this role very seriously. This is my 13th year on the Board of Elections. I'm joined now by my friend and the chair of the Democratic Party, and working together to make sure that we make every effort to make sure your ballots are properly counted, and that every vote is secure and safe and counted. And beyond that, again, on specific questions about that or concerns that you or others may have about votes not being counted, we're happy to address those.
And looks like we have one more question going back to David Winter from WKRC.
Sorry, I'd love to hear myself talk, I guess. One more for Alex and Gwen, and that is, first of all, you can hear me, yes, Denise? Okay, great, thank you. How many polling places are there in Hamilton County? And you had said that there are going to be sheriff's deputies and perhaps, I believe you said police officers at the at the Board of Elections. Are you going to have all of these polling places manned with officers, or can you only expect that kind of protection if you are at the Board of Elections?
Correct. Well, first of all, the police officers will be at the Board of Elections, and David, candidly, that's as much about directing traffic and crowd control. And again, having done this for a long time, we hardly ever have to involve law enforcement in anything more serious than just crowd control and traffic management. So, to the extent that you'll find maybe one or two rogue campaigners, we've not taken anybody under arrest or anything like that. It's more just a sense of controlling the crowd, et cetera. To answer your question again, and I think that Gwen was clear about this, there will not be law enforcement officers at every polling location. You stumped the both of us with your question about how many polling locations there are. That number fluctuates. I think it's final now, but it's usually in the neighborhood of 400, maybe 5. It's a guess now, so I could be off. But again, that's a matter of record on the exact number of polling locations. And by the way, that number tends to be fluid too. You know, for instance, if a place is under construction or if they have a power problem, we'll move locations or combine them. But most of the time, that number is in that range that I just talked about. And I hope I've answered your question.
Alex, you have to admit, though, this election is different. I know you've done a lot of elections, but let's face it, this one is different. Wouldn't you agree?
It's different because of COVID. It's not different because of the candidates, not different because of the personalities involved. The rhetoric's
Not different
always
because of the
over-
contentiousness?
No. I think it's contentious. Look, I mean, again, I'm not here to be at all political, and that's not my intention, but there was a lot of angst about the Democrat president, and our people were very anxious about this process, and it's just the nature of it. That's just where we are in America. But the COVID crisis is the only thing that seems different to me. The anxiety around the election is typical.
Gwen, do you have a thought on that? Don't you think, Gwen, that this particular election is slightly different, perhaps more contentious than ones in the past?
I think there are a lot of variables related to this election, not only all of the politics, but at the Board of Election, we as the board, as well as the staff, we do not engage in the political aspects of what's going on outside that building. We work together as Democrats and Republicans. We work side by side, scanning the ballots, opening the ballots, making sure they're complete, making sure they're cured. And so we work very diligently to avoid this whole political stuff that's going on right now. And that is very important. You know, when we leave that board, when I came here this morning, because I came from the office as well, what happened over the week is irrelevant from my perspective as a chair of the Board of Elections. Alex and I work very diligently and well together to keep the politics out of the work that we are required to do for the voters.
I know that was it, but there's just one more question here from Jay Hanselman of WVXU. This will be the last question. He says, what is the status of poll workers? Does the board have enough, or is there still a shortage?
We have fulfilled, to my knowledge, all of the inside poll workers that we need. Again, we have it distributed fairly with Democrats, Republicans, and also some nons. I want to thank all of the organizations in the community that came aboard. We had a great relationship with Western Southern. We had P&G also sending some of their staff in to participate and help with the voting process. We had the Urban League, we've had NAACP. So we've had a great support system in our community to make sure that we could get the inside poll worker positions filled. So as well as when we're looking outside poll workers are coming aboard as well. To fulfill what they know is their right and their duty to ensure that we will have a safe and secure election here in Hamilton County.
That concludes our questions.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you again, Commissioner Dreihaus, for inviting us here. Thank you to our journalists and reporters for the great questions that you fielded to us. And Alex and I are always prepared for the unexpected, aren't we?
That's right.
Thank you very much.
And thanks to you, and also Greg Kesterman for being here this morning. You know, there are people calling into question the validity of the process this year. What we are trying to exemplify this morning is that both Democrats and Republicans are working together to make sure, especially here in Hamilton County, we have open, fair, and safe elections, even during a pandemic. That is the whole point of having the two experts in the room talking about what we are doing as a county to make sure people have the right to vote in Hamilton County. So we don't want anyone to think that their vote doesn't count in Hamilton County. Your vote counts in Hamilton County, and everyone should exercise their right to vote. So if we could throw that graphic back up onto the screen related to the dates, it talks about early voting, when you need to register, when early voting starts, the hours of operation at the BOE, election day, all of the information's there. I believe the BOE's website is it on there as well? The BOE's website is Hamilton County. VoteHamiltonCountyOhio.gov. If you've got any questions, if you have any questions and you can't remember that website, Jay, I don't know if you got that. I know. So, Jay's sweating back here again. Right? Call my office and we'll get it to you. Or go to the Hamilton County website. Yeah, Jay's dying back here. So anyway, you know, the whole idea is please vote. And the other piece, the PPE question, thanks for that question. Hamilton County is also, through emergency management, provided PPE for the election so that people feel safe on election day if they go to the polling place or at the BOE prior to. So thanks again so much for being here. We really appreciate it, and thank you all for joining.